What's going on, everybody? This is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com, at OccupyFantasy on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube. I think I said YouTube twice, but whatever. We'll figure it out. It's at the top right of your screen up there. Basically, if there's a social media platform, just Occupy Fantasy. We'll probably be there. Again, I'm your host, Moose, at CFP_Moose on Twitter is where you can find me. Co-founder and data guru here over at Occupy Fantasy. Alongside Brian, at Brian Jester FF on Twitter. How's it going, Brian?
Oh, what's up, Moose? Yeah, that's the way to do it. You sandwich it, right? You say the most important one first. You say the most important one last. So maybe I'll just start by saying that. So I'm Brian, $1 million winner on DraftKings, FanDuel DFS runner-up, multi-time 100K winner, and $1 million winner on DraftKings.
Nice. There we go. Yeah, this is the $1 million mission, Week 15 edition. NFL season's almost coming to the close. Yeah, we're chugging along, figuring it out as we go. And Brian, I think we're going to switch it up just a tiny bit here. Talk about a little bit more about the DraftKings contest, the World Championship that happened. But before we do that, let's hop over and see how you did last week. So over on FanDuel, 40-50 in entries, 7-5 in winnings for a minus 83% ROI.
Super fun.
Good.
Yep.
On DraftKings, 37-50 in entries, 924 in winnings for a minus 75% ROI.
Yeah, and I use the same. We'll talk about this at the end, but I use the same, roughly the same player pools. I use the same stacks on both sites, 6 stacks, and the only one that did remotely well was the Aaron Rodgers one. The other 5 bombed, which means those lineups were out of contention. I had 0 Jeff Wilson, which was the optimal running back on both sites, and he was like 10% owned. Yeah, pretty much disaster all around.
Yeah, I will say it was funny. We had a little segment about like why wide receivers were so bad, and everyone we talked about that was bad, like did something well.
Oh, I know.
Scored a touchdown or something like that. So it was pretty nuts.
The running backs. I mean, the running backs were bad in general, though, right? Like even like Najee Harris and our favorite pivot Joe Mixon, absolutely terrible. And I don't know, just the product gets worse and worse every week. Both my ROI and the NFL on-field products. So
Definitely
yeah.
the Mr. Krabs Patrick handshake meme.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Definitely. And then take a look at how you've done year to date. If I can find that image logo, where is it? This one. Yeah, 119,000 in entries, a little under 70K in winnings for minus 42% ROI.
So 2 takeaways here. One, obviously not great. Disappointing compared to the last 2 years so far. We still have 3 weeks left in the regular season. This is just a sliver of my allocation, right? It doesn't include Showdown, which I did very well in Sunday night. It doesn't include satellites, which have been hit or miss for me this year. And the biggest takeaway here is, at Occupy, we preach contest selection. We preach bankroll management. We preach really trying to play smaller contests in general, right? Don't enter contests that you can't max enter, because even though I believe that I have an edge and my historical results show that I have an edge, if I'm not managing my money properly, and you see the dollar figures here of what can happen during a down streak in one particular contest type, the highest variance contest type there is, you're not gonna have a good time. So so I think that's the big takeaway here, right? The loss is obviously, we're being transparent. I'm being transparent, but that should be the takeaway you have from seeing these graphics every week.
And that GPPs are hard, like. That's
just,
yes. Yeah, pretty much how it is. And then if we take a look over at how we did at the DraftKings Pick'em, was like most things. Like we went 1-4 last week. Brian, you and I were talking before the show. We very easily could have went 4-1.
Definitely could have. And we wait. So there's before last week there were 4 weeks left, and we were kind of right on the bubble of the cash line. If you remember, we were in 200 or 300 something place last week, and what it came down to was we realized that because of COVID situations, because of line moves, that there were going to be 5 to 6 teams that were so much more popular than every other pick'em in the pool, right? There was going to be 5 or 6 teams that are going to be at least 20% plus. And by looking at the entries that were ahead of us in the pick'em pool, we noticed, Moose, that over the last couple of weeks, those entries have been picking the chalk picks at a higher rate than the field was. So we knew that if we wanted to make ground on the people ahead of us and move into the cash and even make a run at the top 10, we knew that the chalk teams had the bust. But we made this, minimize the number of things you have to do to get right, which we talk about in DFS all the time. That was our. It doesn't get any simpler in a pick 'em pool when we know the 5 most popular teams. Instead of needing those teams to win and whatever teams we pick to win, we just picked the opposite of all the chalk teams. Yeah, they were kind of bad plays, but we need them to lose anyway, so we might as well get the double leverage if they hit.
Yeah, and you also think about it from this point of view. Yeah, I know we were getting bad line moves where we were giving away sometimes 3 points, but if you look at the leverage in terms of even what the closing money lines were for these underdogs and in these teams, there were still, let's say the money line percentage was 15-20% for them to win the closing line, but in the pick 'em pool, if they're 1 to 3%, that's still leverage.
Yeah, and we don't even need them to win. We just need them to cover. And with the line moves, the alternate spread and the cover rate was like 40% for these teams, but they're literally being picked at 2%. So I thought, shout out to us, fantastic strategy. Did it work out? No, but this is why we have to be process oriented, not results oriented. And Moose, I would say, again, I know this is the DFS show, but this isn't a strategy that we could implement from week 1, right? Just because I think taking those bad teams the entire year is probably a bad move. Whereas, the stretch we made from, week 8 on until, 2 weeks ago, we were at like a 60-75% hit rate. So, if we implement that all year instead of trying to take these bad teams all year, I think it's too extreme to do it all season. You only do it when you need to get ahead of the field.
Yeah. I mean, this was the perfect opportunity to do it. We thought this was the best opportunity to go full leverage, because if we went 4-1, like we very easily could have been, we're in the cash. We're looking at like eyes emoji, like we might have a pretty good payday, and I would do it all over again. Nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, as Ed points out here in the chat, what did he say? Hey boys, I heard a stat that there were 40 total touchdowns Sunday, the least in 27 years. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it actually was. That's true since 1994 or something. And the COVID situations, teams running at higher rates than they had the last few years. It was only 9 games. Well, I think it was only 9 games on Sunday, or 10 games, whatever it was. So that contributed too. But just offenses can't get anything going, and we'll see that again this week as all the totals are below 50 once again.
You heard it here first. When's that USFL coming?
Dude, I mean. I was telling you the other day, it's like it feels like NFL recently has been like week 1 XFL, right? Like teams cannot score, totals in the low 40s. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, what was it? Chris pointed out the stat that Kansas City has the lowest ADOT of any team over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, dude, like what? Come on, man. Grow a set. What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Figure out the cover 2 for Christ's sakes. It can't be that difficult. It's the most innovative defense of all time, apparently. People can't figure out the goddamn cover 2.
It's literally game changing.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ, man.
It's crazy. So, Brian, while I pull up who won the DraftKings World Championship, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what that was?
Yeah, so I was not in this contest. I tried very hard to qualify, did not qualify. So the DraftKings World Championship, the Fantasy Football World Championship, the FFWC, we're going to review the winner and just talk about where some people placed and just the contest in general, because I think a lot of people have pipe dreams of entering this contest. Live finals are one of the greatest things, if not the greatest things in DFS. We got to experience in the Puerto Rico FanDuel live final a couple years ago. But this contest is 200 people. You have to qualify. The ticket is essentially worth $62,000 to $65,000, right? You have to think of trying to qualify for a $65,000 satellite ticket. That's basically what you have to do to get in. And this prize pool is so ridiculous, and it's why I tried to qualify so hard. The winner, $2.5 million up top. Again, only 200 qualifiers. $2.5 million up top. 1.25 million the second. 750K to third. 500K to fourth. The top 10 all got 6 figures. If you somehow finish in last place, you got the free trip to Miami, and you still got $20,000. So, the who's who of DFS was in this contest, and it's always interesting to see what they did and who outlasted who on such a shitty NFL slate.
Yeah, and of course, someone with 7 entries won it. So Vasa, the GOAT, with the $2.5 million payday. Pretty sick.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me. I'm putting the link in the chat for you guys so you can see it. Hold on. I'm putting the link in the chat to the actual contest itself. That way, you guys can see the full leaderboard. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Vasa, who this guy's interesting. I don't know much about him. If anybody in the chat or anybody watching this, after it goes live, comment or hit us up in Discord. So I don't know. He has no results on Roto Grinders before 2021. So I don't know if he's like a whistles go woo nerdy tenor type guy who just started playing DFS, or just never made a Roto Grinders profile, because I don't remember seeing the name before this year. But this guy won the 4.444 milli, I think like week 9 or something. So had $1 million payday in his pocket. I assume has been crushing these satellites all year. And you got to figure 7 entries times 60K in tickets. The dude probably spent a lot to get these tickets, right? So he had to finish pretty highly to even break even. Just so happens he went out there and won it with $2.5 million.
Yeah, and it shows that with these live finals, not only do you get like a really awesome experience, but in the fact that there's such small fields, you can see here he had two of his players had snowflakes. Devontae Adams was 16 and Gallup was 6. Like, you don't need the highest scoring thing by far to get first place in these type of small 200 player contests.
No, and honestly, as we talk about the lineups and stuff here, that should be your main takeaway, right? Because you'll see like Empire Maker post on Twitter, or you'll see like Leone from ETR. He'll win the Thunderdome, and he'll post his winning lineup, and then half the fucking comments are like, "Oh my god, I scored higher than that." It's like, all right, well, maybe that should be your tell to enter smaller contests, right? Sure, you're not going to enter the Thunderdome at 5K per entry, but instead of entering the $5 massive GPP, enter the $5 100-player, 200-player contest, and your 170 points would have won it instead of finishing, in 20,000th place in the big GPP, right? So that's why, Vasa only scoring 169. He's not trying to score the most points. He's just trying to score more points than everybody else in his contest.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And had a mini stack. Was that 3x1 stack he had?
Yeah, see, 3x1's making a comeback, winning 2.5 million in the DraftKings live final.
Yeah, good for him. Yeah, and again, also really quick, I want to talk about with Devontae Adams. With him getting a snowflake, but him still being basically 50%, that can you can eat the chalk there, and it's okay in a small contest like this.
Absolutely, and not to mention the fact that he was basically still one of the highest scoring players at 16 points on this garbage slate. So it was funny because even on like the big GPPs on FanDuel and DraftKings this past week, like the large millionaires, Adams was in the winning lineup, and he obviously wasn't optimal. His teammate Marquez Valdez-Scantling outscored him, but it didn't matter because Adams was so highly owned.
Yeah, and as Chris points out here in the chat, he almost perfected first and last place in the same contest. He got first and then 198th.
Yeah, that's the ultimate first for the last mentality for sure.
Yeah, and so let me ask you this then. So for these smaller 100-player, 200-player league contests that we recommend to play, if you are, because I think some of them are 3-entry max, or if you're spreading it out across different contest types, I kind of like that strategy where it looks like, so for his first place lineup, he had a Green Bay, Baltimore 3x1. For his 198th place, he had a Pitt, Tennessee 3x1. I mean, does it make sense to completely just change the lineups that you're making, throw them in a bunch of different ways, and if one hits those 100-player leagues, then you're recouping your money?
That's kind of what I've been doing with Showdown, right? I've been making like 6 to 12 lineups depending, enter them in small field contests, and like the $300 100 players or the $400 100 players, the $200 300 players, whatever it is, and just making 6 different lineups and kind of not going all in on one captain, which is probably a viable strategy in a GPP, but in smaller contests, I spread it out and I really just need one lineup to hit in that sense, and that's basically what Vasa did. Because he had 8 lineups, by the way, which is insane for this contest. So in his 8 lineups, let's just look, because I think this could be a good indicator of the type of, because we get this question all the time, right? Most like, how should I spread my exposures if I make 6 lineups or 8 lineups or 3 lineups? So I'm going to go from his winning lineup to his worst lineup in the stacks that he had. So his winning lineup was the Green Bay 3x1. His his number 2 lineup was a Josh Allen 2x0, it looks like. Yes, 2x0. Yeah. Then he had a Jacksonville 3x1. He had an Arizona 3x1. He had a Cincinnati 3x1. He had this time another Buffalo stack, but it was a 3x0 instead of a 2x0. Okay. A San Francisco 3x1. 3x1? Yep, San Francisco 3x1. a Dallas 3x1, no 3x0, and a Pittsburgh 3x1. So literally he only doubled up on Buffalo. So he had 7 different stacks across 8 lineups, which again, if you listen to us, you may think, oh, that's spreading too thin. But when your goal is to get first out of 200 players or whatever, right? I think it kind of makes sense. We talked about this in MLB. You make 3 lineups. If you do 3 different stacks, keep your pitchers the same, your other hitters the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if one of your stacks go off, which the same concept applies in NFL, that's the highest ceiling outcome of your lineup. If your stack goes off, one of those goes off, this guy has a chance to win 2.5 million.
Yeah, I absolutely love the strategy that he had there. I think I'm going to start implementing that a little bit more than what I'm currently doing. So interesting to say. Ken says, look at the dude who actually finished last, though. So let me pull him up. Let's see what he did. So, again, this is a safe zone. We are not judging anyone. Oh, man, he had, actually all snowflakes. That sucks.
This poor guy. I can't laugh because I lost whatever he made in qualifier entry fees, so I can't really say anything. But getting a 0 from Packers D, a 0 from Julio Jones, a 0 from Jerry Jeudy is rough times. But again, I had some GPP lineups that look like this week. So again,
yeah.
But what do you do? He did a Pittsburgh 3x1. They just decided they couldn't do anything. So is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an awful lineup. No. David says, if I'm going to play one high-risk contest on FanDuel this year, what contest would you recommend? Max entry fee $250.
I really like. Let me think what it's called. I'll look it up here in a second. I'll get back to you on that.
I was say, what do you think about the Blitz? The Blitz is a 130. Actually, no, probably the Fade. Actually, that's only Thursday. Is that Thursday? Yeah, I'm looking at Thursday. Hold on.
No, but I think they have a Fade on the main slate as well. Let's see here.
Yeah, so there's the $222 single entry Fade, which is a 400-person contest.
And it's single entry.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid. And in fact, you could probably, after that fills, there might be a smaller Fade closer to lock, which is probably your best bet. Because, for example, on Showdown on DraftKings, there's the 2-point conversion. And when it first opens, it's $222, but it's like 40 max or something crazy. Like 1,600 entries. But once that fills, they open another 2-point conversion, and that's only like 300 people, and it's like 4 or 5 max or 6 max. And that's way more conducive to the strategies that we talk about. So I think if you have to pick one right now, the Fade, but definitely check closer to lock Sunday morning. Once that one fills and other contests open up, you'll find a little bit smaller one, and honestly less sharpness in that contest.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because I just want to see the entrance in that Fade right now is yeah. I would not want to play against these people.
No, just wait. Just definitely wait. And as you because the contest, I mean the sites generally do the same thing every week, right? Once something fills, they'll put another one in. So you pretty much know if a second Fade is coming if you monitor it for a week or so.
Yeah, exactly. So, cool beans. I think that's all the question. One here from Johnny says, small field, higher entry fee, way better to play versus small field, lower entry field. In those lower entry field, people enter way more random lineups. Is this fair to say?
Johnny? Do you mean like the big contest, like the large field contest, or did you mean something else?
Abel is a trooper. He says, everyone go ahead and like the video. I appreciate you, Abel.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate the support, and follow his request.
Yes.
And if you're not subscribed, click subscribe too. Yeah. Whoever wants to say that in the chat too.
Definitely. And if just comment once the video's over. Just say subscribe. They're great. So that'd be fantastic.
Thank you all. Appreciate
it. So let's actually go over to the Fantasy Labs contest dashboard now. After that, and this is the this should be, I think, the contest from last Sunday. I know
it is because James Robinson's 52%, so it's definitely him.
Oh yeah. Bro, I know why you didn't get 150 uniques, man.
Did I really not? What lineup was duped?
All right, we gotta look at this first.
What lineup could possibly be duped on this garbage slate? Right, again, now I'm just curious. No, I'm just reeling again that this happened. But I remember I told you ever since that one time it happened, I was not gonna let it happen ever again. At least not to the extent of what it did. So I've been making a concerted effort to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm really curious. Who the fuck stole my lineup?
Come on. We're getting there.
But yeah, this was, I mean, it was such a bad slate. I played like 6 small field lineups myself, and if I had entries into the Fantasy Football World Championship, I still would have only finished like in 100th place or something. So, and judging by my ROI at the top of the show, that shouldn't be too surprising.
I know, it'd be like, yeah, you qualified for a 2.5 million to first contest, automatic guaranteed money, and then your ROI still be like 75%.
I know, dude. I mean, and that's why we always talk about those live final events. While they're super fun and like absolutely life-changing paydays, they're legit bankroll drainers. So
yeah. So here is your duplicated lineup. So it was a Dallas lineup, 3x0 Dallas lineup
with Devontae, Nico Collins, so Pappy 324. How many entries did they have? Is it like this dude had one lineup and that was the one that they got duplicated?
Let's see. He had 55 lineups and 39 were unique.
What the hell? All right, well, it is what it is.
Yeah, be like that sometimes. I'm actually curious now. Will this filter, like, can this even sort? Like, who had? I was trying to see who had like the least number of uniques among 150s.
They should definitely make that a field, right? And then that person's banned from playing forever.
Let's see. Okay, so Johnny says no. Small field higher entry versus small field lower entry. Feels like the higher the entry fee, the more people will follow ownership. Smaller entry feels people are willing to enter random lineups.
Yeah, so this is where knowing your contest comes into play. So if you're playing the same type of contest every single week, right? Let's say you're playing, there's a $5 100 player that posts late, and you kind of know who's playing, and you see what the ownership looks like, and you see that there's some really bad lineups in there. In that case, you can play it much closer to the vest, and you can play all the best plays, period, add some correlation, and you're good to go. However, if you're playing the Thunderdome, and you know that ownership is going to be condensed, and Devontae Adams is going to be 80%, and James Robinson is going to be 90%, in this 20-player 5K contest or whatever, right? Then you know you have to get different in those spots. And by playing some of the same contests every single week, you'll notice the trends of how the players in that contest and the lineups compare to what projected ownership is, and then how much multiplied or how much of a decrease it is compared to like the Millie's ownership. So really, I don't think one's better than the other. It's just knowing what to expect and then playing against that.
Yeah, and also, I think it's Fantasy Cruncher that has the contest links going back like since forever. Like if there's like particular contests that you're interested in, let's say the Thunderdome or the Fade, for example.
Or the Fade, yeah.
You can go and just go each week by week, and it's a little bit more tricky on FanDuel because they don't have CSVs. But go there and get a feel for what people are doing. It's small. It's a small enough contest that you can grind it in a couple hours and figure it out if you need
Definitely.
to. So
believe me, talk about this for League of Legends or MMA or whatever. Once you play the same contest every single week, and it's small field, and especially in niche sports, it's easier because there's only so many contests. But the same concept applies for later posting contests, the morning of on FanDuel and DraftKings. You get a sense of what's optimal, what the field's going to do pretty much every time, and that's the biggest hurdle for most DFS contests.
Yep. So I was able to sort it. So 150 maxers that have the least number of uniques. Can't Stop Beast Mode is number 1 according to Fantasy Labs. He only had 60 uniques.
That's bad news, man. I'm like excited if I get 60 uniques in a showdown contest. God forbid I ever had 60 uniques in a classic slate. Jesus.
Phil Rofi had 64, and then this surprised me. Oxenduck had 95. He was tied for third.
Legitimately not surprised because he plays so projection heavy.
Yeah.
That's why. I think a lot of these you'll see projection heavy lineups. I'm not saying he's like spitting out Roto-Grinders optimal lineups and using those, right? But like because he plays so projections heavy and his projections are really damn good, as evidenced by his 2 millies this year.
Yeah.
He's not playing as much game theory type lineups as say someone like I don't know, like Leone, since we brought him up earlier in the show. He's playing super game theory lineups in the Thunderdome.
Yeah, so I'm actually curious. I want to see his allocation because it says he has 35 players in his exposures. And so he had, if we sort by that, he had 100% Aaron Rodgers, 100% James Robinson in 150 of his lineups.
That was that goes to show how hard GPPs are because Aaron Rodgers, number 2 quarterback on the slate, James Robinson, a top scoring running back, and he still lost $2,500 in the millionaire.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I was just seeing some other things, see kind of how he did. He played like every defense.
Well, the old last gets fit strategy, but just for defense.
I do want to see the other two just because we talked about Oxduck because he is really good. So it looks like James Robinson, 61% for Phil. Jeff Wilson was next at 41%. And he had 72 players in his player pool. Oxenduck had 85%. James Robinson, 75%. Devontae Parker, 46%. Gabriel Davis.
Yeah, I mean, so those are the 3 highest owned players, right?
Mm-hmm.
James Robinson, Devontae Parker, Gabriel Davis. Those were like the chalk plays, and Gesicki, right?
Yeah.
Those were the chalk guys, and he played all of them. He played 35% Devontae Adams. Like he's gonna play it optimally no matter what, and he's gonna just jam in the optimal projections. And sometimes if his projections are better than the others, like which is why he had like 27% James O'Shaughnessy compared to Fields 4%. His projections or system or simulations must have said that O'Shaughnessy was a much better chance than what the field thought of being optimal.
Definitely. Yep. And then if we head over to yours, because I do just want to see your exposures really quick. And while it's loading, David says, are we going to do any guides or anything for the FFPC playoff tournament? I don't think we have anything in mind, Brian. I don't know if you have any resources that you go to.
Jack and I are going to team up for a bunch of entries this year, so if we find some edges, we'll post them in Discord for you before it starts, but no guarantees.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks like your top plays, James Robinson, even though you still had minus 10% leverage, Gabriel Davis, Michael Carter, Devontae Freeman, Devontae Adams. So a lot of your top plays weren't really that leveraged on the field, and some of you were even negative. Kind of, what's your first thought when you see something like that? Like, does that seem like a good idea, a bad idea?
Doesn't seem great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great. Like Robinson, I want to at least match probably chalk running back.
Mm-hmm.
We probably should have known he'd be much higher than our projected ownership just based on that exercise we did on Saturday where we said every single running back sucks. And it's like, well, James Robinson was the only one that was standing out. So no surprise that he got up to 50%. Devontae Adams, because of all the value, no surprise that he got up to 35%, up to 55% on FanDuel. I would have played way less if I'd have known that. But I also stacked Green Bay, so it's kind of tough to not play a ton, or at least a decent amount if I'm stacking them. So I don't know. Can we look at Vasa's 150 max and see what he did?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I'm pretty sure he 150 maxes all the contests, especially after he win $3.5 million.
So he was a goat. He only did 9 entries in this.
Oh, so did he? What other contests do they have available to analyze? Do they have the 4-4-4-4?
They do have the 4-4-4.
So click that one.
He had
Who
9
won
entries in this. Y. Shurin?
Only 2 entries. Nice. So did Vasa did he enter the same lineups in this? I wonder, or did he enter different lineups?
Let's see. So we'll just look. This is his top lineup here. He got 8th in it for 169.12.
Yeah, that was his FFPC or not FFPC, Christ, his FFWC lineup.
Okay. That's wild.
So
you
probably
get the World Championship and just do the same 9 contests for everything.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Interesting.
Yeah. Ed says, what was your Huntley leverage, and are we going negative 100% Duck Johnson this week?
A typo there, I think it's Duke Johnson, right? Most that's your boy, Duke Johnson. The one chance we get to play him, and no one ever played him.
Yeah, I'm actually being 100% serious. If it is Duke Johnson week, it is lock button. That is the fanalytics in me saying that. Like, Duke Johnson is easily my favorite active football player.
Moose is a big Duke Johnson stan. We'll have to see this week. I haven't looked at too much, but there's many other good running back plays this week, so we'll see. So the Huntley exposure is a great question, and looking at, to be fair, I overlooked it. I should have played Huntley. I really didn't like Dak. I talked about it on Saturday, right? And then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, they have the high team total. Maybe they get there. The receivers have low ownership. I can get there. But using my the stack metrics I look at, I had Green Bay, Baltimore circled as the by far the best game to stack on the slate. And I was so fixated on Baltimore missing their entire secondary and like half their other players, despite the spread being only 6.5, 7, whatever it was. For some reason, I never thought to play the underdog quarterback, and especially a guy that can run. It just for some reason I was so fixated on Aaron Rodgers, it never crossed my mind. Would I have won? Probably not. Would I have not had a negative 80% ROI? Probably, right? So, but I think it's just be cognizant of, if you really like a game, make sure you're not really overlooking one side or the other, especially if one side stands out for a particular reason, like the Baltimore secondary injuries stood out for Aaron Rodgers' case.
Yeah, and I talked about this I don't know, I think it was last week, I think it was the week before, where or maybe 3 weeks ago. But anyway, regardless of it, where I had like 4 different slate groups, and I was building like multiple different ways, and that were completely independent of each other. Sometimes it's good to just, if you think a game might get there, build around it and see kind of how it feels. And if you feel good about it, then you can make a decision based off that.
Absolutely. I think it's a great way to do it. And just building a ton of lineups before Sunday morning just to see what's possible and what's available. We talk about that for NHL and MLB, but that same concept could apply to NFL, just to see what your lineups look like. Just like you said, just go all in on one game, see what it looks like. Go all in another game and see what the lineups look like and exposures. Then you'll realize quicker that way than if you're trying to build them all at once, what's working and what's not. So, yeah, I'm kicking myself for not playing Huntley. And just a little note I've written myself to be more cognizant of in upcoming weeks, not to overlook the underdog quarterback and not to be too obsessed with the one side of a game, even though the whole game itself pops in my rankings.
Exactly, yeah, definitely. So we always like to look at top duplicated lineups, and we look here. A Tua, Parker, Miami defense stack was duplicated by 174 users, and I don't think that this cashed.
The old the 2-game slate 3x1 with your defense against opposing running back stack.
Yeah,
yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, that's not good. Cool. Let's see.
Can we look at tight end usage, tight end flex usage? I was curious about that this week.
Yep. So 13.5% on tight ends across all fields, and then 17% across the top 1%. Brian, I think I'm almost convinced that there is a place and time for tight end and flex. I know you might flame me, you might kick me off the show. But
I've been playing it in 2-game slates, so I'm curious to hear your take on it in larger main slates.
So we all talked about it. Like, the NFL has drastically changed this year. Kansas City's the lowest ADOT team in the league last 3 weeks. I think if you play tight ends that could be essentially wide receiver ones, Kittle, Andrews, etc., and to have good goal line work, I think it's justifiable to potentially put them in your flex spot. I mean, would you rather have Mark Andrews, or I'm trying to think of someone in a similar price range that's like a wide receiver 2?
Literally anybody I played this week that scored 8 points.
Like Gabriel Davis or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that, especially with, you said they have to cover 2, ADOT's down for certain teams. If you look at target shares, route runs, stuff like that, I feel like tight ends can get there, especially over on DraftKings, where they do have the full point PPR. I think it can get there for certain tight ends. I think you just need to be very specific on who they are and tell yourself, okay, does this actually make sense? And then look at the salary and what wide receivers or running backs are in that range. It's like, okay, how would this tight end outscore this running back or wide receiver? It doesn't make sense. And if that's the case, then I don't hate it.
And I thought about this too, right? Like, if the game stack's really expensive and you're 3x1ing and the builder is forcing you to play, okay, you need 10 to 15% of this $3,400 wide receiver, or another 10% of this $3K receiver that you don't even really want your player pool anyways. Why not just play James O'Shaughnessy? Or because it's funny because I see this pretty often in Whistle's lineups, and someone, was it Vasa? Yeah, so Vasa in his last place lineup, he played Josiah DeGuara, who I don't know if anyone even knows who that is, but he's one of the Green Bay tight ends. He's 2,700. He played him, Whistles won the FFWC last year, $2 million with Durham Smythe as his tight end. You'll see. I think it's especially in smaller field, they'll just punt that position completely, and maybe that extends to playing two tight end lineups. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. And again, as the game changes, I'm not gonna completely write off double tight ends. Obviously, a lot of things have changed this year, so we can't just say for certain that that's a really really bad move.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you should play like Foster Moreau and Durham Smithy or whatever that person is, but like don't play two bad tight ends. Like you can punt it, don't punt both. That's just bad.
Okay, I agree. That's probably bad.
Yeah.
Whoever that guy is.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't pronounce his last name, you probably either should play him a lot or just don't play him at all.
No in between.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a little bit past our time. Brian, is there any lingering thoughts you want to discuss, talk about, comments, concerns?
No, congrats to Vasa. Amazing effort. Pretty good year for him. Over $3 million in winnings. Pretty decent year, I would say. So I don't know. I think that the thing that's interesting to me is we see some of these new guys take the scene. We talk about how DFS is getting tougher and tougher, but we have these new faces come in like Whistles, like Vasa. Potentially, again, I am not 100% sure that this is his first year playing DFS. Mm-hmm. At least this is his first year on Roto Grinders. Nerdy Tenor, who came and took the showdowns and NBA by storm last year. It's interesting to study what those people do, right? Because clearly they have a fresh mind on DFS and they're looking at it from a completely different angle. So looking at what those guys do compared to what some of the more established players do, I think can help you just get a fresh set of eyes on the new trends in DFS.
Yeah, as Chris talks about, DeGuara, Green Bay tight end 1, and no one cares. It's actually a decently sharp play until pricing catches up to it.
He's been playing a lot. So, yeah, I totally agree.
Yep. Last thing we will do, Brian, is we will talk about the winning lineup for like Woofshoe 99. I guess that's how you would say his name. But he had a Huntley Mark Andrews stack. Bringing it back with Devontae Adams.
Absolutely sick lineup.
Yeah. Pretty sick lineup. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he was in the Millie lineup a couple weeks ago.
He was. Tied Robbie Anderson for 2 millies that he's won people. So, this is a sick lineup because he had the mini stack with Arizona and Detroit. Mm-hmm. Pretty good lineup all around.
Yeah. Jeff Wilson, Deonta Foreman, had Houston defense. I can't hate it. It's a great lineup. So, congrats. WPHSU for doing it.
By the way, he only entered, because I saw the screenshots on Twitter. He only entered $45 in entries and won.
Nice.
He won everything. He won the milli, the play action, the flea flicker. The dude got back like 1.27 million or something on $45. Just an epic Sunday.
Yeah, I'm just not playing DFS anymore after that.
Yeah, no, your luck for 10 lifetimes has expired at that point.
Definitely. So, cool. All right. So, until next time, again, model will be up before midnight Eastern time because blame the NFL for having Tuesday games, and yeah, we'll be back again on Saturday as we break down the next main slate. I think, Brian, actually, it's Christmas, so are we gonna do it?
Yeah, so I was wondering, you guys let us know, but I was thinking maybe we do it Sunday morning this time.
Okay.
Friday afternoon we won't have enough COVID news, or maybe we just forego it. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll let you guys know for sure what the plan is.
Let's be honest. Our family just gambles on NBA Christmas anyway. So
we very easily could do it on Christmas. I don't know how many people would actually watch it. Is what I'm saying.
No, I know. But yeah, we'll figure it out. For those who are in Discord, we'll definitely post it there. We'll tweet it out, all that stuff like that. Stay tuned. However, until next time, Moose and Brian here from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good night.
Peace.